Alright guys, it's time to talk about the unexpected when it comes to Werewolf by Night. And no, I'm not just talking about Werewolf by Night because it's definitely unexpected that we're getting it. I'm talking about the debut of Marvel's first vampires, and this being the introduction of one variant of specific vampires, which we'll get to after the intro, the Nosferatu. Okay, so before we get to this, you gotta bear with me here for a minute. Most people just think vampire, they think, okay, you got old vampire, you got sexy vampire, and you got whatever other vampire. A lot of people don't know, and I don't blame you. I know this is like a specific interest that only specific people have, that there's literally dozens of different vampire types. The one we're talking about is the Nosferatu, which is probably the most familiar if you've ever seen the classic interpretation of vampires before they got all attractive and sexy. Anyways, because I'm a huge occult and strange nerd when it comes to the weird things in mythology, here's kind of a quick breakdown of just some of the types that are mostly made famous by Vampire the Masquerade, if you want to look into that. The Nosferatu is one of the most interesting ones, though, that ties all the way back to classic vampire things, and it makes sense that Marvel would probably want to use elements of that. So recently people discovered that if you go essentially frame by frame in Werewolf by Night in that trailer, if you pause it just right, you're going to be able to spot this. Now again, by all accounts, this is strange, but you can definitely make out a creature here with big eyes. You got the front fangs and everything right there. And if you just compare it, the similarities to a Nosferatu are pretty clear and evident, including the ears. And the Nosferatus, even in Marvel Comics, look like this. So again, there's a pretty clear like DNA here in terms of what they're going for, and it's very evidenced if you just compare the two that they're definitely going for that specific vampire look here. Now, some people are confused. This doesn't mean that this is what Blade is going to look like. Again, let me bring up the chart. Again, this isn't related to everything, but it's the best way to kind of explain it. If you just look at this, you get the idea that they can look different. They come from different backgrounds, and their deformities and unique features are different. Again, even in Marvel Comics and, well, in the real world and folklore and everything, you got different beliefs. So, like, the Strigoi, for example, from specific parts of Eastern Europe, does not resemble the standard vampire that you would associate with, like, you know, Transylvania and Bram Stoker or anything like that, which doesn't even closely relate to the one of ancient Serbian and Bosnian lore. So, again, there's differences here. And if you go all the way far back to, like, ancient Greece, where they even talked about vampires then, they just weren't called vampires because the word wasn't invented till hundreds of years later. Okay, so like 1,800 years plus, but whatever, semantics. You're going to understand that the character evolved. So just because the Nosferatu vampire is appearing in this, it doesn't mean vampires, Blade, or even other cults and, you know, houses of vampires are going to look like that. I just want to make that clear. Some people are already confused. But again, I'm not trying to be like, oh, I know what I'm talking about, education. No, look, I get it. Not everybody likes this stuff. It's very unique. It's not even popular in mainstream culture anymore because vampires had their peak, like, what, 25 years ago or something in the late 90s. So, yeah, don't worry about it. The Nosferatu is not what Blade's going to look like. It's just one element, but it's a rather important vampire, all things considered.